we get things started off with Videodrome from 1983. This is a movie that centers around Max, who was played by James Woods, who is the president of a trashy TV channel and is desperate for new programming to attract viewers. So he comes across a show called Videodrome, a show which is dedicated to gratuitous torture and punishment. And as he delves further into the show, he finds out that the show isn't quite what he thinks it is, and his reality starts changing around him, and it's all good stuff. I don't really want to get too much into the plot, because I guess that's a part of what people would really be clinging on to when they watch this movie, I guess.
Yeah, the movie is really an experience, and it's something you should experience for yourselves, not listen to two guys talk about it.
Yeah. I kind of tried to watch this movie a long time ago, and I don't know if I ever finished it, and I don't think I ever did. So I did buy it again recently, with the purpose of watching it again, obviously. So I watched this again, and much like a lot of other Cronenberg movies, it's like he definitely has some different ideas when it comes to movies. Like, it's not just the same old type of movie that a lot of other people are making. He's usually got something intriguing. So yeah, Cronenberg usually intrigues me, but quite often his movies don't necessarily do it for me. There's like maybe a couple of scenes in his movies that stand out, and then the rest of it, I don't know, I'm just sitting there waiting for something to happen. I mean, this movie has a really, really great gore scene towards the end, and a few decent scenes towards the end. But for a good portion of the movie, I was just sitting there just kind of waiting for certain things to happen. I mean, I guess that means the story itself still didn't quite do it to me. It's one of those things where you have to think a lot about it, and not all of it is making 100% clear sense as you're watching it, so it's sort of confusing at times as well. I don't know, maybe there's some people out there who get it, and maybe I just didn't get it. So, look, I had an okay time with it, but at the same time, yeah, it just didn't do it for me. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, so I forget how many episodes ago we covered it, but we talked about Cronenberg's movie The Brood from '79, and in much the same way I thought about that one, this one has never quite done that much for me. Now, I've seen Videodrome maybe 3 or 4 times now, and much like my experiences with most other Cronenberg movies, it just, I just don't get it. The concept is really cool. The idea, as far as I understand the idea, is pretty cool. But this execution, more than anything, just confuses the hell out of me. And like I said, I've seen this like 3 or 4 times, so it's not getting any clearer, guys. Not to say that there's not reasons for everything that happens in the movie. But it's not something, as a casual viewer, I would really take all that much enjoyment in. I mean, I really like the mystery aspects, the losing grip on reality type stuff. But the whole body horror thing, was never my cup of tea, and unfortunately that's like 90% of what Cronenberg does. So it's unfortunate. Like Chucky said, there are some really great special effects here, especially toward the end. So it's not like there's not a lot of good things in the movie. It's just, once it comes to the end in this movie, I'm like, was it really worth watching? I mean, it's a decent movie. If you're into like the more weird sci-fi, psychological-esque side of horror, it's certainly worth watching if you haven't seen it already. And I have no problem calling it a classic, but it's not really a movie I would find myself going back to all that often.
I mean, you brought up The Brood, and I had a similar thought. That's one of the movies I kept thinking of as I kept watching this. It's another Cronenberg movie that's, it's okay. It, once again, just didn't hit the spot for me. And it got me thinking of, what other movies has Cronenberg made that I actually enjoyed? So I started looking through the list, because I could only think of a few off the top of my head. And, The Fly is a bit better than this one, even though still The Fly is not an all-time favorite movie of mine or anything. And then I'd say probably A History of Violence is probably the one that stands out the most for me personally, and I did see that one in the theaters. So, but yeah, this is a guy with a pretty big following, and he's definitely made a lot of movies that people enjoy. And if you go on IMDb, they generally have really good ratings. I mean, even Videodrome's got I think like a 7.2 or something like that. So there's definitely people out there who enjoy it. And I mean, I didn't have a bad time with it. It just didn't hit the spot for me. So yeah, it's a little weird to see a director who makes movies in a genre that we like, and so few of them really stand out for me.
I do want to point out, I'm not sure if you've seen this movie or not, but from 1975, he had a movie called They Come From Within, also known as Shivers, which is pretty good zombie-esque type movie. So that's certainly worth watching, and that's probably out of the movies I've seen from Cronenberg. It's a bit more mainstream, but it's also probably one of the more enjoyable ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't recall if I've watched it. I know the poster and all that, so I definitely know which movie you're talking about, but I don't know if I've bothered to watch that one.
Ironically, two of his biggest movies I've not actually seen yet, being Scanners from 81 and, God, what's it called? Rabid, I think, from 77.
Yeah, I've seen Rabid, I've seen Scanners, and I probably need to watch those again to really know how I feel about them, but I'm pretty sure both of those, I feel pretty much the same way about those as I do with, Videodrome and The Brood.
So pretty much, guys, get ready for a Cronenberg show next week.
Yeah, so, like, with Scanners, as far as I can recall, everyone knows the head explosion scene. And I mean, that's the highlight scene in the movie. Unfortunately, it happens earlier in the movie, so at least from memory it does. And I didn't feel like there was much else outside of that really, excited me. And it's kind of similar to this, like, the end, there's a few exciting parts towards the end, but for the majority of it, it's trying to build up to it, and the suspense and build up for me just isn't there.
Yeah, I think with Videodrome, there's some really interesting concepts, like I said. The way they try to tie it all together, it just doesn't work for me. I like the, God, what's that guy's name? Oblivion. Obviously not his real name. I sort of like his backstory, at least what we understood about his backstory. His philosophical rambling about TV being the eye of the mind. I can do without that type of stuff, and unfortunately, that's probably part of the issue. Psychological rambling seems to be quite a big part of Cronenberg's stuff. Not that it can't add quite a lot to a movie. It just like the whole "Long Live the New Flash." I have literally no idea what it's talking about, because it seems to me Videodrome is trying to make the new Flash. Is this new Flash different from the Videodrome Flash? I don't know, and I don't know if they do either. I just don't get it. There's some really cool visuals here. Obviously, the scene where the guy sticks a gun into his stomach. I mean, that's somewhat disturbing scene. The TV sort of beckoning him forward. It's sort of a really cool scene. So there's plenty of good things here visually, but story-wise, while I appreciate the atmosphere, and like I said, I like some of the concepts here. It just, especially toward the end, once we find out a few more things about some of these characters and the pirate feed from the beginning, it just doesn't do nearly as much for me as I always wish it had.
I guess the the main exciting thing for me in this movie, outside of just a couple of the special effects scenes towards the end, is realizing the character of Nikki Brand, played by Deborah Harry. I had no idea she was a singer of Blondie. So, not that I'm a Blondie fan or anything, it's just, everyone knows that, or at least that Call Me song, because it's played in Bride of Chucky, but...
because everybody's seen Bride of Chucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have. But it's one of those bands that's got quite a following, and I never even knew what she looked like or anything. She's pretty attractive in my opinion, but I don't know. That it's just one of those things where some fairly famous person that you never even knew what they looked like, and you just realize, oh, okay, that's them. They're in this movie.
I do think that leads to one of the more interesting scenes in the movie, the sort of TV interview between James Ward's character and her character Nikki. Talking about the violence on TV, whether or not that causes more violence, or rather it's just a harmless outlet. Which obviously that's a topic that goes on to this very day, and that's a topic that actually makes sense. I do like how Oblivion came on the show, and he's just again philosophical rambling. I just love the interviewer's expression. Like she's just saying yes, now could you please answer my question? Like that guy is not meant for public consumption. So it just that's one of the more interesting, and I also enjoy about that scene how the two were talking in the background. It's not even, I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but it just cracks me up.
So if you were on that show being asked that question about TV violence and all that kind of stuff, what would you have to say about it?
Well, so I would probably agree with most of what James Ward's character said. Difference being he's doing it obviously for financial reasons. I generally see it more as an outlet as opposed to a precursor to violence. If you're having any type of like, hey, I really want to go more to someone, well, that's probably a problem to begin with. But if you watch it on TV and you say it, then you'll probably be okay. But I just never believe the whole violence in video games and violence in movies causes violence. Now on the small side, it may cause a few people who are more mentally imbalanced to go out and do things they might otherwise not have. But for a majority of cases, pretty much I find it harmless entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, I'd pretty much just sum it up by that one line in Scream towards the end where they're saying watching horror movies or violent movies, doesn't make you a killer, it just makes a killer more creative, that type of thing.
I enjoy that.
Yeah, that's pretty much my general thought on that.
Although if you are a horror fan who has problems with violence and horror, please let us know. And also tell us what your favorite Universal horror movie is.
Yeah, so we'll just wrap this up right here. I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. And, it's anything I give a 6 out of 10, usually I'm willing to continue giving it another shot later on. I mean, it could be however many years before I look at this one again, but like I've said, and like you've said, it's got good concepts, but it just doesn't all come together for me. It's partly confusing at times. The suspense just wasn't quite there for me, and probably that's because of the confusion with a lot of the story. Yeah, so a 6 out of 10 is where I'm at.
Yeah, and much like Chucky, I'm also going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's certainly not a bad movie, and like I said, it's a classic, and it's certainly, I have no problem calling it a classic. It's just not my type of movie, and as many times as I've seen it throughout the years, it's never been my thing. Really enjoyed some parts of it, really liked some aspects about the movie, but overall I just never really enjoyed it. So I think a 6 out of 10 seems quite fair.
I guess one thing I should say about Cronenberg, which I didn't mention earlier, that man has some fantastic hair. He should be in one of those Paul Mitchell books.
I'm going to pretend I know who Paul Mitchell is and say yes, Chucky.
He's like some famous hairstylist or something. I don't know.
How do you know who Paul Mitchell is?
Well, I saw him in an Adams. Well, I don't know if he's even real. I assume he's real. But he's in this Adam Sandler movie, You Don't Mess with the Zohan, who he plays this terrorist who wants to leave his country and become a hairdresser. I don't know.
Hey, yeah, coming from someone who has literally not heard anything about that movie, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, David Cronenberg, nice hairdo. You can see it in full effect in his appearance in Jason X, I guess.
Indeed.